In football, certain moments are so clear, so searing, they need no introduction. One of them happened on June 22, 2010, inside the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. Nigeria, on the brink of early World Cup elimination, faced South Korea in a decisive Group B clash. The Super Eagles needed a win to progress to the round of 16. Instead, they got a memory they've spent over a decade trying to forget. And at the center of it all was Yakubu Aiyegbeni. This is not a story of scapegoating. It's the story of how one moment in a career of many goals became frozen in time, and how it came to define not just a player but a generation's heartbreak. Nigeria came into the 2010 World Cup in disarray. Shaibu Amadu had been sacked after guiding the team to the third place at the Africa Cup of Nations. In came Lars Lagerbark, a Swedish tactician with little time to prepare. The squad, although rich in talent, lacked cohesion. There were familiar faces: Kanu, Yobo, Enyema, Ademwinge, Obasi, and Yakubu, but also unfamiliar partnerships. The tournament had started with a narrow 1-0 loss to Argentina, where Enyema's heroics kept the score respectable. Then came the calamity against Greece. Nigeria took the lead, but collapsed after Sani Keita's reckless red card, eventually losing 2-1. The result left Nigeria needing a win against South Korea and also hoping Argentina will beat Greece, which, to their fortune, was the case. All that remained was to do their part. The match began with urgency. Nigeria struck first in the 12th minute through Kalu Uche, whose low strike slipped under the South Korean keeper. Briefly, there was belief. But this was a Nigerian side that lacked defensive discipline. Just before halftime, they concealed from a set piece. A Korean delivery met by Lee Jong-soo at the back post, making the score 1-1. Early in the second half, Park Chu-young curled in a brilliant free kick to put South Korea ahead. Nigeria were going out. Then came the moment. In the 68th minute, Chinedu Obasi charged down the right wing and played a low cross into the 6-yard box. The Korean keeper was beaten. The ball rolled across goal, alone, unmarked, with the net gaping. Yakubu stood 2 yards out. He opened his body to side-foot the ball into the empty net and inexplicably guided it wide off the post. Stunned silence. The miss was not a deflection. There was no pressure. The pitch was not bubbly. The angle was not tight. It was by every measure an open goal, and it was missed. Yakubu would go on to score from the penalty spot later, drawing Nigeria level at 2-2, but it wasn't enough. Obasi struck the bar. Martins missed a one-on-one, and time ran out. Nigeria was out of the 2010 World Cup. The inquest began immediately. Before the tournament, Yakubu Aiyegbeni was Nigeria's most consistent striker. He had scored goals across Europe, in Israel, in England, for Portsmouth and Everton. For the Super Eagles, he had notched important goals in qualifiers and tournaments alike. But none of that mattered anymore in the court of public opinion. He was condemned, not just for the miss, but for the smile that followed. Cameras caught Yakubu grinning moments after the miss.
In my head, I thought it was a goal already, you know? So then there was a massive, big scream there, you know. I was watching the replay. I was chewing gum and I was smiling inside me, like, I did, like inside, how did I miss this one? It's not like I was just
happy.
No. As a player, you want to score goals as a striker.
A look that to many Nigerians felt like betrayal. The outrage was swift. In a country where football is religion, Yakubu was cast as the villain. He was accused of being careless, of lacking commitment, of being a symbol of everything wrong with the national team. His international career never recovered. Though he continued to score at the club level, Yakubu never played for Nigeria again after 2012. In interviews, he stood his ground. I felt bad when I missed it, but people still talk about it and are saying if I had scored, we would have gone to the next round, the former Everton forward told Goal.com. Even if I scored, are we going to win the World Cup? That I'm not sure of. I've scored so many goals for Nigeria, and even when the people thought we would never qualify for the World Cup, I stood up to be counted.
I got a message today. Someone was like, "You're the worst Super Eagles striker ever," because of that goal. They never think about
all the other goals.
The other goals I've scored. They never think about when I scored goal when we went to Sudan, when nobody think we will qualify for the World Cup, Korea, Japan 2000.
I have always done my best to help the country, but it's weird that people still send me messages till date, even on social media, about that miss. They would write things like, I never forget, oh, I never forget the goal where you miss, so we no go forgive you, oh, and so on. And I would be like, wow. I never let that affect me because I think only about the good memories.
I've qualified Nigeria and I got message every day. They tag me. For me, I don't think about these people. I think about me, my family, You have to think about yourself. I even scored a penalty.
Yeah, in that same game.
In that same game.
Yeah, I remember.
You understand?
Yeah.
Korea. I even scored a penalty. And you calling me, we will never forget about you. How do you explain to your daughter? Make sure my daughter named Kayla.
He continued, 10 years in the national team was great, and wearing the green and white jersey was an honor for me. I still watch some of my goals with my kids. Also, playing in the national team was a joy for me because that was my childhood dream. As a player, you want to play for your country, and I'm glad I did so graduating to the Super Eagles after playing for the Under-23 game. I was also opportune to play at the South Africa World Cup, where I scored a goal. I have no regrets whatsoever despite my miss against South Korea, but it did little to ease the pain. The miss had transcended logic. It became folklore, the kind that passed down not just as memory, but as warning. It is important to understand why this hurt so much. For Nigerian football, the 2010s began with promise. A young team was emerging. There was a talk of rebuilding, of a new identity, but the manner of their World Cup exit in South Korea set the tone for a turbulent decade, a carousel of coaches, underwhelming tournaments, and public disillusionment. Yakubu's miss became a metaphor, not just for failure, but for the self-inflicted wounds that often derail Nigerian teams. It wasn't just that it was missed, it was how it was missed, the ease of it, the finality, the gaping chasm between expectation and reality. And yet, to define Yakubu's career by that moment alone is unfair. He remains Nigeria's fourth highest goal scorer of all time. He scored in multiple AFCONs, played in top European leagues, and was a consistent performer for over a decade. But football is rarely fair. It is a game of moments, and some moments echo louder than others. Today, 15 years later, fans still replay that miss, some with anger, others with reluctant humor. On social media, it resurfaces whenever the Super Eagles fail to deliver. It lives in memes, in YouTube compilations, in listicles of football's worst misses. But time, as always, softened the edge. There is growing recognition that Yakubu, like many before and after him, was simply human, that he bore the brunt of a nation's pain, not because he was the only one to blame, but because his mistake was the easiest to freeze in a single frame. And maybe that's the real lesson. Football is cruel. It remembers not what you did right, but what you got wrong at the wrong time. For Yakubu Aiyegbeni, the goal he didn't score in Durban became the one thing no number of goals could erase. And for Nigeria, it remains that miss that still hurts, not just because it happened, but because it summed up everything we hoped we had outgrown. If you enjoyed this episode on Top Niger Life, do remember to click the subscribe button, like this video, and share to everyone you know. Have a great day.